We're honored to speak with Congresswoman Ann Marie Buerkle. How are you, ma'am?
Hi, Bob. Good. How are you?
Oh, awfully well, thanks. I appreciate your time, and I know that you're busy. I know you just ran out of a vote to speak with us. This morning, what'd you do and how'd it go?
Well, as you know, we had a hearing in the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, and this actually was one of several hearings we've had regarding Operation Fast and Furious, which was a Department of Justice exercise that took place in Arizona and then went over the Mexican border to deal with weapons. And this morning we had the U.S. Attorney Eric Holder was the only member on the panel who testified, and all of the members of both sides of the aisle got to ask him questions regarding the operations.
Now, Fast and Furious, if I understand correctly, there were guns that the U.S. government with taxpayer money bought, and which they sort of purposefully had be sold illegally with the notion that they would then track these guns and see where they went and maybe, make some arrests or stop some bad guys or whatever like that. How in fact, though, did the operation turn out? Well,
and this is not uncommon up to a point. This was DOJ had implemented the program, but ATF actually executed it. And it's a way for Department of Justice to find out who's buying guns and what, to track them probably to criminals. And in the case of Mexico, they were looking for drug cartels. But in all the other instances, what has happened is that guns, when they're purchased from the gun shop by these straw purchasers and then transferred to the third party, they're tracked. DOJ and the ATF, they've always found out where these guns were going, so they never lost track of the guns. In this case, they lost track of about 2,000 weapons. And so as you know, in December, Brian Terry, of December of 2010, Brian Terry, a special agent, was killed by one of those guns that the Department of Justice let walk. And we don't know for sure, but probably well over 300 innocent Mexican people have been killed by those same guns. And there are still probably 1,300 of these guns at large. So the questions, they need to be answered, and who should be held accountable for this botched operation.
And how did the Attorney General do today, and what did you ask him, please, ma'am?
Well, I asked him, what I did was I played a clip because in June we had Brian Terry's mother and sister and the spokesman for the family, his cousin, before us in a panel. And I asked them, what is it we can do for you? And they said, find out, get to the bottom of this, who's responsible for this. And so I played the clip for the Attorney General, and I asked him to answer that question, and he hemmed and he hawed. And to be quite frank, I found his demeanor to be a little bit arrogant, like when he said, I am the Attorney General for the United States, as if to say, I don't have to be held accountable. But in fact, I said to him, you are accountable, not only to the people in my district, to the American people, and to Brian Terry's family. We deserve to know what happened and why this life was lost and why other lives are being lost as a result of this botched operation. He did agree that letting guns walk was a bad thing, and they've since changed the policy. But there's several thousand documents that he hasn't turned over, and unfortunately they've been subpoenaed on several occasions. And I believe the chairman now of Oversight, Darrell Issa, is considering contempt, a contempt motion to compel him to hand over the documents.
And from these documents, you want to learn about this program, and you want to learn what else?
Well, we want to know from him, did he know about it? Because there's a lot of misunderstanding. There's a lot of, it's not clear whether he knew about it and didn't do anything about it, because the agent down in Arizona thought that letting the guns walk was a good thing. And so there was a little disconnect between DOJ and what was going on down in Arizona. Did he know that? And so the question then becomes, and his testimony has been somewhat inconsistent, and so the question is he incompetent or is he not being truthful? And I think those are questions that need to be answered. I, along with several members, have asked for him to resign because of this botched operation, because lives were lost, and they will continue to be lost. So he needs to take responsibility, but we didn't get that from him today.
Anne-Marie Burkle, a lawyer herself in the second half of her life, talking about an appearance before a committee of which she is a member today by the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder, reading stories through the afternoon. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but several of them report him as becoming somewhat testy through the exchanges. What was his demeanor like, please, ma'am?
I would agree with that assessment. He did become a little bit testy. He was, I thought, a little bit arrogant and forgetting, just like all of us, we work for the American people. They deserve answers. Certainly the family of Brian Terry deserves answers. And it's, the buck stops somewhere. And if it doesn't stop with him, where does it stop? And he was unwilling to let us know that today.
Congresswoman Anne-Marie Burkle, on another subject, ma'am, we hear today that some fellow from somewhere within the Republican Party stands up and says, I'm going to challenge her, meaning you, for the Republican nomination to run for this seat in Congress. What do you say about that?
Well, that's his right as an American citizen, and I don't know of it yet. It's been a busy day here, so I'm sure I'll get details later on today.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I mean, and again, Americans do whatever they want, but announcing a primary challenge at this stage before the district lines are drawn may be premature. The gentleman, unless he's your right next door neighbor, may not end up in your district. Who knows?
That's correct. At least we know when the primary date is. Now we'll hopefully get some lines soon, and then we'll all know where we stand. Well,
I think we know when a bunch of primary dates are. I think you're talking about that June 24th one, which is a definite maybe. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's absolutely correct.
Unless something else happens, June 26th, there may be a primary. Anne-Marie Burkle, so appreciate your time. I appreciate your service.
Always a pleasure, Bob. Thank you so much for having me.
You betcha. Nice speaking with you.